everyone, and welcome back. This week for Section 2, we looked at Chapter 6. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and just run through some of the key takeaways that I found on all of these different instructional theories. So the first one we've all heard of is the behavior learning theory, and this was B.F. Skinner's theory, kind of based upon the belief that learning can be understood, explained, and predicted entirely on the basis of observable behavior and events. So this theory kind of looks at the behavior of the learner along with its antecedents and consequences. So we kind of see this a lot in school with behavior therapists and that sort of thing, like BCABs. And when, if we're having trouble with a student, we call them in and they really look at kind of the antecedent, what they're doing prior to the behavior, um, when the behavior occurs, and kind of the consequences or that sort of thing afterwards. So we do kind of see that a lot in schools today. And this theory really influenced instructional feedback, which is important. Then we have the cognitive information processing theory. So this was Atkinson and Shiffrin. And there's kind of like a multi-stage theory of memory. So it was more kind of talking about the memory and how we have our sensory memory, and then that goes into our short-term memory. And then if we continue to practice and practice and practice, that will go and then into our long-term memory. Schema theory and cognitive load. This kind of looks at knowledge is represented in long-term memory as packets of information called schemas. So those schemas organize information into different categories that are related in different ways. And learners can then use those to interpret events and solve problems and help them to develop new and more complex. So this is kind of like building upon knowledge. So like if students know how to multiply, then they'll be able to do multi-digit. If they know their basic multiplication facts, then they'll be able to move on and do multi-digit multiplication. And then if they know that, then they can do long division and sort of that sort of thing. So they're building these schemas and memories in their brains to then build upon the next step. The situated learning theory. This theory relies more on kind of social and cultural sort of things than it does on individual psychology. So this one is really you learn by doing. So I think especially for special education, this is really important for my kids. I can't just lecture and give direct instruction. Like they have to practice and learn by actually doing it, whether it be, uh, a grammar topic or a math problem or a science concept. They have to have more of a hands-on approach and really learn by doing, and that seems to really help them to then have that stored in their memory. Then finally, the biggest one we kind of looked at was Gagne's theory of instruction. And this one kind of had three different components. So it starts with the taxonomy of learning outcomes. So it's really looking at what the students need to know. And then we look at the internal and external learning conditions that may play a factor or role in the learning outcome. And then we have the 9 different events of instruction that kind of facilitate that learning. So as you can see in this picture, it has those 9 different events. So first you need to gain your students' attention and kind of tell them what the learning objective is going to be. Stimulate that prior knowledge. If you need to know, they need to remember something from before, then kind of present that information, provide guidance along the way, then really have them practice the skill and provide that feedback. And then once they feel comfortable and they're ready to then assess that, then they will be able to do that. And hopefully, once they take all of these steps, then they'll be able to retain that information and kind of apply it as well. Then it kind of talks about how there's 5 different major categories of learning. So we have the verbal information, So, knowing this or knowing that, and being able to say that. And then we have our intellectual skills, so applying that knowledge, our cognitive strategies, our attitudes, and our motor skills. So, kind of what I took away from all of these different theories and theorists, um, some key points is to make sure that we observe our students' behavior, kind of to identify what students need to know, where they're at, what they need to practice, and kind of when they've met that goal. Um, Also, we need to use instructional strategies that are meaningful and relevant to students so that they can remember them. Provide opportunities for students to collaborate together and really work hard together. Align learning conditions with the type of learning outcomes students are expected to attain, and then kind of encouraging students to set their own goals and then provide instructional strategies that allow them to reach them. So, really kind of um, putting some, I'm trying to think of the right word, really having the students be involved, I guess you could say. Um, but that's kind of what I took from this chapter. So I'm excited to see what you guys learned as well, and I hope you have a safe and happy